Commercial real estate has huge appeal for both beginners and experienced investors due to its massive earning potential, but with big opportunities comes big misconceptions about the challenges of acquiring commercial properties. Today, we're addressing the 7 common myths that every commercial investor comes across in their real estate journey and explaining why these should not deter you from the most exciting investment opportunities of your life. Believing even just one of these myths is enough to hold you back from never achieving your goals of generating life-changing wealth. So make sure you aren't falling victim to any of these, and let's get going. So starting first with myth number 1 is it requires a whole lot of cash. While commercial properties do require a larger amount of capital to get that investment going, you don't need all the money up front to secure the deal. In fact, it doesn't even all have to be yours. And having cash helps, no doubt about it. But real estate is really unlike any other asset class in that it allows you to borrow against the property before you own it. Leveraging your debt isn't only viable, it's really recommended and actually expected. It is not unusual at all to go to a bank and say, hey, I want to borrow money against this property. It's completely normal. There are countless banks and private lenders and hard money lenders out there who are willing to finance your projects, especially for commercial real estate investment, because profitable potential is much higher with these projects and recurring income is much more stable, and banks love that. And so, for example, a mortgage of $3,000 a month on a, say, 12-unit apartment complex really isn't that big of a concern because you're making $5,000 of net income. Revenue minus expenses is $5,000 a month, which comfortably covers your mortgage payment of $3,000. Plus, there's always this strategy of wholesaling where you can get a property under contract and then sell it to somebody else without ever actually purchasing the property yourself. There are so many ways to get started with little to no cash, even in commercial real estate. So don't let any of that get in your way to taking action and making a life that you want. Myth number 2 is commercial real estate requires years of experience. One of the biggest mistakes that I made at the beginning of my career was focusing solely on single family because I thought I wouldn't be ready to do anything else. That's all I could get my head around. It wasn't until 3 or 4 years into that journey that I realized I could have been buying apartments all along. This whole time, I could have been going so much further and moving so much faster if I had just been buying multifamily. I bought a 2-plex or a 6-plex here and there, but I wasn't getting into these really big projects like 30, 40, 50 unit apartment complexes. If I could start all over again, I'd begin with commercial real estate and essentially use it as a leapfrog strategy rather than slowly starting with 1, then 2, maybe 3 at a time. I'd jump straight into a 4-plex or a 12-plex or a 20-plex. Even with something like a 40-unit apartment complex, it's common to think that it would take 40 times more work to make that happen than just buying a single family house. But in reality, it's probably 2 or 3 times harder, but you get 40 times the benefit. You already know what it's like to be a tenant. You already know what it is to be a resident in a property. You know what you want in a kitchen or a bathroom. The learning curve really isn't as steep as you might think. It's a very simple business, and all you're really doing is renting a rectangle that you already have experience living in. So we always advise new investors to stick with what they know. Invest in what you understand already. Sure, if you have a previous experience with retail or hospitality or industrial or whatever, because maybe you were previously in that business, go and do that business. But for most people, start with multifamily because it's what you already know better than anything else. Myth number 3 is commercial investing is too high risk. Every kind of investment involves risk. Commercial real estate is not an exception. The key question is, what degree of risk does this investment carry, and is it outweighed by the potential upside, the reward that you could get from making the investment? You may see a $1 million commercial property and assume that the price tag represents 5x what you would be investing in, say, a $200,000 residential property. But that isn't necessarily the case. And if you know what you're doing and have access to a valuable network of like-minded people that you can find like in our free community, it just makes the business so much easier. Of course, the more volatile a property is, the higher the risk and the potential profit. So it's important to keep in mind that some commercial properties are riskier to invest in than other kinds. Office buildings, for example, aren't exactly skyrocketing post-pandemic. You better know exactly what you're doing if you're investing in office buildings. On the flip side, properties on a triple net lease are less risky because the tenant is responsible for the ongoing expenses, which means steadier returns at the cost of profit potential for you. It's all about finding the balance between low risk and high profit that works for you and what you understand in your situation. All right, moving on to myth number 4, good deals are hard to find. So here's the thing, there's always somebody in the marketplace who needs to sell their property. Your idea of a good investment and your strategy may differ from everyone else's, but there's always a deal to be had regardless of what the market is doing. There's always somebody making money one way or the other. In every geographic market and in every market cycle, there's always somebody making a profit. It all comes down to defining your goals, what you want out of this business, studying the market conditions, and then knowing where to look so that you're ready to strike when the opportunity is available. We use a tool called commercialdealfinder.com, which allows our clients to filter through all 27 million commercial properties that exist in the US and search for off-market properties that are not listed for sale, giving them a huge advantage in the marketplace. And I'll leave a link below if you want to check that out. But you can also use a website called Crexi.com. I'll also leave a link for that. It's a really great way to get intimately familiar with a given market area because it shows you the properties that are listed. So you can think of Crexi as kind of like the Zillow for residential. This shows commercial real estate property that is listed for sale, and you can reach out to the brokers and find out a whole bunch about the marketplace by doing that. Moving on to myth number 5, it requires all of your time. So you must think, since this is so complicated, that it takes all your time, right? Well, not necessarily. So as an investor, your primary job or role is to find and secure deals, then set up systems to ensure that everything is running smoothly and you increase your chances of getting the return that you want. So buying a commercial property is just like buying a small business. You're going to be outsourcing all the maintenance to a third-party property manager, and they're going to take care of leases and maintenance requests and that sort of thing. You're not going to be personally managing the tenants or taking care of the toilets or calling the termite company no more than Jeff Bezos isn't out delivering his Amazon packages. That's not your role. Most of your time will be directed towards finding and raising capital. Then you'll meet with your property manager, say, or in your bookkeeper probably too, maybe like an hour every week. We actually have clients who own hundreds of rental properties, sometimes thousands of rental properties, and once the properties are stabilized, you'll spend as little as 4 hours per month managing these hundreds of thousands of rental units. And they're earning a higher income than they did while working a full-time 40-hour-a-week job, all by maximizing efficiency and focusing their time on the efforts that's most important, and that is not taking care of the toilets. All right, almost there. Myth number 6, real estate is a 100% passive income opportunity. With that being said, this is not the 4-hour work week situation. You aren't going to be spending 4 hours per week from the beginning and just coasting along without doing some work on the front end. You've got to continue to put in the work to go and find good deals. Some people might have you believe that this is a 100% set and forget type of business where you just rake in this passive income and you never do anything. But real estate investing does involve a respectable amount of work on the front end to acquire properties and then set them up to a point of stability. So you got to put the work in the front. So you're not just going to buy a place, hire a team to maintain it, and then never worry about it ever again. Just because it can be done with minimal effort doesn't mean that you're going to completely abdicate all work to a property manager. You're still going to be managing the property manager. So once again, you can absolutely set up a really smooth operation that doesn't eat up a bunch of your time every week, but you should be prepared for the work that comes with reaching that point. You have to front load the work. The good news here is that the work you put in now will pay off big time down the line. All right, myth number 7, real estate is an overnight get rich quick strategy that's going to solve all your problems. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bust your bubble, but that's not true. Commercial real estate is known for getting really good returns. Sometimes that return can come in the form of a big assignment fee, like in the case of wholesaling. I even did a video about how I received a 6-figure assignment fee from just one property. But that deal was made after I'd already put in a ton of time to build a network of buyers, and I'd made a whole bunch of phone calls to find sellers. And so it can pay off very quickly, but realistically, it's going to take some time to build your pipeline of deals. Wholesaling can take as much as 6 months of calling around, shopping for deals, and building your network to just get one assignment fee. The real wealth in real estate is investing over the long run. You don't want to wait and buy real estate. You want to buy real estate and wait. The wealth comes from the equity that you build over time. This is a very, very simple business that creates cash flow while you hold for the long term, and then you accrue tons of equity over the long run by holding the property. And you can get started quicker than you think, but anyone promising you that you can get rich overnight is selling you a lie. Real wealth comes over time. Now, get out there, invest in your future, and join our free community so that you can come talk to us about real estate and figure out how you really can build wealth over the long term.